Hello, Facebook world. This is the Sunday edition of Creativity for Recovery. Get right. Today we are working on poetry again because the Fine Arts Festival, for New York, is putting on a Recovery Fine Arts Festival. This August is the deadline to submit, so we're probably going to work on poetry. Maybe some editing. We'll see. If anyone has any suggestions, let me know. But that's the reason I'm focused on poetry. I'm not mad about it, though. I love poems. And specifically, the poem we're going to write today works really well for people who don't like writing poetry at all. So if that's you, you're here, you like writing, but you're like, ugh, poetry, or you don't like writing at all, this is the perfect place. The activity we're going to do is called Found Poetry. We'll get more into that. But first, while we're waiting to see who else shows up, maybe just a little bit of a reason behind it other than a product. Writing is so cathartic. And I was thinking about that because I spent the morning on the lake, just soaking up in the sun, relaxing, having a beautiful Sunday. And I was just thinking of all these things that are within our grasp and so easily reachable that we often forget how much joy they bring us. You know, something as simple as hearing the birds, feeling the sun, being next to the water, getting a pen and just writing something down without worrying about what it sounds like, looks like, or will be understood as. Drawing a picture. Gosh, I'm an atrocious artist, but I love drawing because I don't have to think. I just let whatever's in me out. So I hope that that's the attitude you approach our activity with today. Just pure release. We're going to do a task in a single session, get it done, and then move on with the rest of your day. And if you like it, you can always come back to it or spend more time with it. So that being said, the first part, it'd be nice if you had a document open or a pen, and you could just write down. But we're just going to do a quick little brainstorm. I don't want you to think too much about it. I'm going to focus on recovery because I'm going to try to help those of you who are interested in submitting something for the Fine Arts Festival. However, if you just want to write a poem about something that's on your mind, just go there. You know, modify my directions as needed, just like we would for a workout. Okay, so enough of me talking. Time for you to think. I'm going to say a sentence, and I just want you for 30 seconds. Ooh, let me get my timer out. 30 seconds. Stopwatch. List every word that comes to mind. Okay? So, when I say recovery, what comes to mind? 30 seconds. Just write all the words that come to mind. Five more seconds, and it could be recovery from anything. And pause. So here's my list. Nothing fancy. I'm not expecting anything fancy from you. Just words on the paper. We're going to come back to those. Those are going to be our guideposts, right? So the next thing we're going to do is gather some materials. Today we're working on found poems, and just like with the words, I really don't want you to think too much of it. What I'd like you to do is just grab whatever books, newspapers, magazines, East of Eden. I love John Steinbeck. One of my friends, she knows who she is, sent me this in the mail. Such a great novel. That's a whole other discussion. But anything that's in that, I got my big book right here. Use that. Anything that's around you. So it doesn't have to be recovery related. Doesn't even have to be something you love. Just whatever materials you have. I'll kill time and talk while you go on a hunt for some things. Probably more than one would be useful. The other reason I wanted to chat a little bit, other than giving you time to find things, for those of you that are still here, there was a really cool discussion for recovery talks this week. I should have written down what day it was. Sorry, not as prepared as I could be. But it was a panel on multiple pathways to recovery, and it was just so interesting to hear, how everybody could work towards this common goal of becoming the best versions of themselves, but the journeys that they took there were all different. They included some interlapping or intertwining or overlapping ideas and processes, but really it's so unique. And this is just another thing to add to your toolbox. Whether you're stressed out or even, if I'm being really honest, I have a more difficult time when things are going good. So if things are going really good, an activity like this could ground you. So what is the activity, you say? We're going to do found poems, which means you're going to go through and find words and phrases in somebody else's work. Now, if you're someone who loves your hand, this is a poem collage. So I recommend getting out scissors and magazines and literally cutting words and phrases out and putting them on the page. Or if you look up found poetry on the internet, you can see some people take an old book they don't love, and they'll actually highlight words on a page and then color the rest of the page in with ink blots or even images like a road or something that has meaning for them. But I don't want you just like going out on this vast search without a focus. So let's go back to our original list. You have 30 seconds worth of words that come to mind when you think of recovery. So I'm going to choose one of my words as a guidepost. So I don't know, I circled two. I like journey, but I also like grief because that whole process, it's not always fun, but it leads to beauty and release on the other end. Most of the time I'm pretty emo about my writing. I lean towards the darker introspective side. So I'm torn between forcing myself to be a little more positive or just going with what works. I think I'm going to go with grief. You can do whatever you want. So choose one of your words. So I chose grief. So now I have a couple of materials. I'm not going to be using scissors. I'm just not in the mood today. I've been doing arts and crafts and remodeling all week. But I have 3 pieces of text in front of me. What I'm going to do is look for words and phrases that pop out when I'm thinking of grief and recovery. And I already kind of know in my writer's brain, I want to talk about all the stages of grief, but I really want to focus the end of my poem on that great release that you get when you go through the grieving process and you open yourself up to new and better things in your life. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to choose one of your words, and then you're going to go through your text either by cutting out, highlighting, circling, or if you're like me, you're going to be transcribing on to a different page. Let's see, we're 8 minutes in. Let's give 7 minutes for this process. And I'll type the directions up. Let me know if you have any questions. As soon as I'm done typing, I'll start the timer. I didn't think of this too. If you don't have an actual text anywhere in hand, you can go on the internet and just pick random news articles, like pick a theme. If you pick journey, maybe you could look up articles about road trips, right? And then pick lines and phrases from them that will get you to a poem. Don't worry about the poem part yet. Now we're just picking lines and phrases that stick out. Okay, directions are in. 7-minute timer, go. if you're feeling stuck, we're 2 minutes in, my best suggestion is don't think too much. Anything you pull now, you can decide to chuck later. So if it intrigues you or sticks out just a little bit, listen to that kind of voice, that essence within you, and snag it. Remember, you're also not writing a poem right now. You're just finding words and phrases that stick out. That process is going to look different for all of us, but for those of you who have never done a found poem or are feeling stuck, I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing. I chose the word grief. I wrote down, found an article about grief, wrote down the stages of grief, and now I'm just randomly, I opened a newspaper, took some phrases from here that stood out, and now I have my big book because it happened to be on my desk. I'm opening to a random page, and I'm just going to pull phrases from here. And I think this is interesting, seeing the comments. We talked about being in the water earlier. You could relate your love of something like being outside to your journey or whatever recovery reminds you of. I see Richard saying he's thinking of Anthony Bourdain's traveling journey. So that would be really interesting to find some articles about Anthony Bourdain or maybe some quotes from things he said and pull words from that to come up with your own. That would be cool. Anyways, I gotta stop talking. I need to write too. Two more minutes. All right. And for the sake of time, I am going to move on to my third book. All right, get close to a stopping point. But no, you're not done. And go ahead and get to a good stopping point. What you should have is some kind of a mess. Or at least I'm describing what I have. A whole lot of mess. As I talk about often, the best thing for your writing is to set it aside. When we're in the moment and attached to it, our brain's working too fast for us to make the best decisions. You know what? It's a good analogy for making change in your life too. When you're in the middle of it, you're too close to be making important decisions. Okay, so let's take a pause. What are we going to do with all these random words and phrases? There is a way to put them into a poem. It's a little bit thoughtfulness, it's a little bit creativity, and it's a little bit throwing a bunch of random stuff into a magic box and coming out with something. But it does work. So there's a couple of famous poets that have used, I should say, because they've now passed on, found poetry. The most famous is Ezra Pound. He was really known for taking presidents' speeches and news articles from the time and pulling out words and phrases and coming up with these wonderful pieces. Cantos, I believe, was made in that way. Then T.S. Eliot, who was kind of a disciple of his, I don't know if disciple is the word, but he learned from him. He has done that. And then there's William Carlos Williams, who's just so fascinating to me. I really love his work, but often wonder where his ideas came from. And while I was researching, I did find that one of his poems, and I don't quote me because this might be incorrect, but from what I understand, one of his poems that I happen to love is also part found poem, which means some of this was random phrases he found in other text, and another one is, the other part of it is him putting in his own words to kind of cushion the gap, So here's what I want to say about my idea. Here's what I found. Here are my words in between, kind of like glue, which is what we're going to do. But first, let's take a look at his poem. If I can figure out. Okay, yeah. Here we go. This is Just to Say by William Carlos Williams. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. I love that poem because it's so relatable. That idea of leaving leftovers or something in the fridge and someone else in your house comes along and snatches it up. But then it's hard to be mad at them because they really found joy and gratitude in it. But you could also be mad because, they were probably for breakfast. He probably knew that they had a use already and just took them anyways. So that's why I like the ending 2 lines, so sweet and so cold. But anyways, you're not here to hear me analyze poetry, just where my brain goes. What we're here to do is create a poem based on what we found. So again, I only know how to show you by showing you my thinking process. I chose the word grief to represent recovery and what it means to me. And then I found phrases for denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I'll just read a couple of them. Under denial, I found these in a news article, my big book, and a Steinbeck novel. This is a true story. Needed something to do. I already thought I knew, but did not truly comprehend. Okay, so it doesn't mean much yet, but there's something there to work with. So I think what I'm going to do is start my poem with, this is a true story. I needed something. I already thought I knew what it was, but did not truly comprehend. Then under that, I have anger. And what will happen really nicely is I could say, I was wrapped in cotton wool and placed on a pedestal. thinking, my family may be possessed. They can all starve. So now I'm just reading from the list of things that I got out of order. This is where, if you're someone who likes to work with your hands, it'd be great to just cut the words and phrases and move them around on the page like a puzzle, and then fill in anything you need with your own writing. You could do the same thing essentially with a highlighter and then rewriting it in the order that you highlighted it. But you might have to take some words away, add some words. Just a little caveat before you get started. If you have more than 5 words, we'll say, or definitely if you have complete sentences, in your title, you should give credit to the place where it was found. Otherwise, if you're breaking the words and phrases up, you don't have more than 5 in a row from the original source, there isn't enough there for you to have to give credit unless you really wanted to. So before I give the next task, let me just throw it out there. Are there any questions? Richard posed an interesting challenge. He said, this will be tough with a guide post the word wuss. He's up for the challenge though. My first thought, and I don't have the words in front of me, but what if you were able to play with irony with that? So you have a negative word like wuss, and then everything under it describes the exact opposite. So the reader goes on this journey of thinking like it's a poem about someone who can't stand up for themselves, and you see all of this bravery and courage. And at the end, that's your statement. Recovery is reframing something that you thought about yourself and seeing it for what it really is, a journey of resilience and strength. Who knows? Here's what I do know. I can't wait to see what you wrote. One human did the homework assignment last week and sent me their poem via email, so I was able to see it. I can't express how much joy that brings me. I do know writing is very personal though, and it's hard for us to put ourselves out there. So I just want to recommend that you do take advantage of that. I would love to be part of the creative process with you and just be part of your journey. We're also separated. Things are starting to open up, but we're physically distant. And this is one way that I can feel connected with the community because writing means a lot to me and I enjoy talking about it. So I'm going to recommend, you don't have to, but I'm going to recommend that you either Facebook message me or email me, and I will take a look at your poems and give you some feedback if that's what you're interested in. Or if you like the poem as it is and you're just sharing it, let me know. Like, hey, I'm just sharing this to celebrate. I wouldn't give any feedback for changes, and I would just be able to celebrate with you. Like, that would bring me great joy. It's not all about me. It's all about us, the community. So if you have other ideas or requests for future writing activities, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, I am going to put the last set of directions in the chat. So if you're just joining us, and you're seeing this last bit of directions, I would recommend going back and rewatching the video from the beginning. But basically, we went on through a process of creating found poems about our recovery journeys. And I'm going to post another link in the chat. This one is to the Recovery Fine Arts Festival. So For New York is going to be putting it on this year. The deadline's August. And it's going to be digital. So you can submit poems, you can submit photographs, a picture of a painting or any other visual art that you've created up till August 18th. And then they will go through them and let people know who won. All right. Thanks, Facebook World. I appreciate you joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you Monday, Positive and Productive, for tips on staying on track. Wednesday, get Recovery Fit at noon, doing a workout. And next Sunday, another writing class. So pretty much everything I love. And I love when you all join me to do it. Have a good one.